Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lysha from Lysha Be Creative, and today we're making this 30-ounce absolutely beautifully inspired tumbler that was actually created based on a color palette I found on Pinterest. You guys already saw me create that decal that's on the front of this tumbler, and I'm going to show you how I put together the rest of the cup here in this tutorial. So of course everything I use in today's tutorial will be listed and linked down in the description box, as well as any discount codes I have for you to save you a little extra money. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. So I'm using this 30-ounce modern curved tumbler that I grabbed up a while ago, I believe originally from Crafty. You can find these sort of style blanks in a lot of different tumbler places. I grabbed mine, I believe, from Crafty quite a while ago when they still were offering this size and style. Not sure if they offer these anymore, but I've already spray painted that cup white, and now I'm just going to apply a layer of a Mod Podge here, and we're going to add some glitter here. So the glitter that I'm going to be using today is Moon Glitter from my Asia Creations. It's a beautiful, like, translucent but white chunky mix. It's an all chunky mix. There's very few smaller pieces in there. It is mostly chunkier pieces, and I really love how this looks just under epoxy. And so we're going to go in with this Moon Glitter, and we're going to go ahead and apply it all the way around the cup, top to bottom. The only place that I will not apply the chunky glitter is going to be on the very bottom of the cup. Just because you guys know me, I don't like to put any of the chunky glitter on the flat bottom side because I tend to always have issues with a wobbly bottom when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this entire cup, have it applied with Moon Glitter, and then you're going to see me put this glitter away, and then I'm going to go in with a finer glitter. So this is a matte white glitter, and it fails me where I grabbed this glitter up from and what the name of it was called, but I will make sure to go to my glitter palette and glitter collection, if you will, and find what that is and link it down in the description. So that's going to cover up any open space from my Mod Podge or anything that wasn't glitter. Because this is a chunky mix, we are definitely going to want to use a bit of parchment paper in order to make sure all of our glitter lays down, and this is really going to cut down on the amount of coats of epoxy we need in order to get this smooth. So I applied about 3 to 4 coats of epoxy here to my cup until it was as smooth as I felt like it could be, and I could move on to sanding. So I'm taking a 60 grit sanding block, and I'm sanding both the top and bottom rim and anything that still is sticking up along the sides, and going to get that all cleaned up with some 91% rubbing alcohol. After I've done that, I've grabbed some inks from Jen's Crafted Gems. I've grabbed an orange yellow, like a deep red, and a purple, and I will put the picture of that right here, and these are the colors that I use. It's a combination of colors from her 31st pack and her original general pack that has kind of all the colors, if you will. And you guys know me, you've seen me apply and use alcohol inks before. I'm kind of just going in a very random pattern, just with all of the colors kind of evenly dispersed, and then going back in with my 91% rubbing alcohol to use those makeup wedges to get everything to blend. So after that was done, you guys know that I like to wait 24 hours before I apply my epoxy, so I let those inks totally dry before I went and applied another coat of epoxy. I grabbed up these leaves, literally leaves that I found in the Cricut Design Space images, and I just cut those in different sizes, all about 1 inch or so, maybe a little bit smaller, on some stencil vinyl. I put them in a swirl pattern along the cup because I really just love the swirl look, and so I wanted to make sure that I kind of got a nice even look of that swirl with a combination of those leaves. We're now going to move into glittering this, and so I've already applied a thin layer of epoxy on my cup, and I'm using 4 colors, and this is where that palette comes in. So I'm going to drop that palette right here. This is the palette that I used, and what was the inspiration for this cup, how I picked my glitters, how I picked my inks, and kind of what was the overall sort of inspiration that helped inspire this cup. So I am using 4 glitter colors today. The first I'm using is Firecracker, which you just saw me go in with over the yellow section of alcohol ink. And now I'm going to go in with Autumn Sunset. Autumn Sunset is from Asia Creations, and I'm just covering up any orange sections here. And the 4 glitters that I'm using for this this glitter section are all sort of rather fine glitters, sort of medium fine glitters, not super fine, but sort of that medium fine glitter there. And so what I'm doing is I'm just literally glittering over the colored sections that I have on my cup that I created when I did the alcohol inks. So I'm just going to sort of follow my gradient and line. I am doing a little bit of blending, not a whole lot, if you will. I'm mostly trying to get a really good base of all 4 colors, and you will still see me kind of tilt the cup back and forth, and that's when I'm trying to just blend from one color into another. But really this is just going to create a really beautiful basis here for all of these colors to just literally lay right on top of the designated alcohol inks under them. This color here is Hopeless Romantic. It's a beautiful magenta color from Peachy Olive Glitter, and that was sort of another glitter that I just had to have on this cup. And so I'm just going to go in again, applying the glitter where I see kind of those pinkish colors between the blend of the purple alcohol ink and the red and orange alcohol inks. And then finally, my absolute final color for adding to the colored sections is going to be Figgy. So Figgy is a beautiful, like, deep plum color, and I love it. It's literally probably my favorite color from Peachy Olive Glitters. I probably will and always be my favorite. And so I'm going over those deeper, darker purple sections. And although it's not a true match to that purple, I really am staying true to the palette that I chose, which kind of has that plummy looking color, if you will, on it. And that was kind of what I wanted to make sure to hold true to. So now that I've gotten all of my colors glittered on top of here and everything looks pretty good, I'm now going to go in with a final color that's just going to kind of help blend everything. Because I wasn't doing a whole lot of blending and mixing of the colors, so to speak, I decided that I was going to go in with this beautiful color that's called Biscotti from Maestra Creations. It's an absolutely breathtaking sort of tan glitter, if you will, but it has really beautiful, like, translucent pieces in it as well. It mimics a little bit of gold, but it also is kind of its own standalone, just beautiful color. It's really hard to describe, but I definitely recommend picking this glitter up. And I've just gone over the entire cup with Biscotti here just to make sure that I have every piece of epoxy that may be still exposed covered in glitter. So I'm going to clean up this space here, and then we're going to roll this in a bit of parchment paper. I want to make sure that my glitter is completely kind of laid down and flat. Again, this is all still very wet, so I want to move quickly here. I'm using a fast set epoxy for my epoxy method glitter, and so I'm going to just kind of burnish down this glitter, make sure everything's flat, and then now you're going to see me go in and we're going to remove the stencils. You don't want to wait to remove the stencils when this is dry. You will never get up your stencils, so you're going to have to do it while wet. So I'm just going to use my weeding tool and my tweezers here to pull up all of the stencils that I can see under my layers of glitter. And what you get under this is sort of really amazing. So you're going to see it at the tail end after I'm done removing this, but what you get is you can see all the beautiful glitters on top, but where those stencils were is like this beautiful shininess that's a combination of that moon glitter underneath, but just a really smooth, shiny surface that just looks so beautiful to me. As soon as my epoxy was dry, I put the cup back on the turner for another coat of epoxy. While I was doing that and waiting for that to cure, I grabbed up and I cut some leaves out of the Cricut textured gold foil metallic vinyl that I just absolutely love to use. And I also took the time to print and cut my fall leaves and fall breeze decal that we created my last tutorial. So now that the cup is smooth and I've gotten a layer of epoxy under it, I am going to go ahead and do my final kind of sanding here. So I'm going to really pay attention to those rims, both the top and the bottom rim here, with a 60 grit sanding block, and then get that cleaned off with a little 91% rubbing alcohol before we go into decals so that we can go ahead and apply our final coat of epoxy to this cup. So I have this beautiful swirl pattern of the leaves that are just so breathtaking to look at. And so we're going to put the decal, the large circle decal, right in the center where I feel is sort of in between the top of the swirl and the bottom of the swirl. So I'm just going to take this decal that I have cut at about 3 inches wide, I want to say, here in this circle, and just apply that directly to the top center portion of the cup. And then we're going to go in and we're going to use an acrylic gold paint pen to trace the lines of the leaves that were originally the stencils. So the reason why I'm adding the gold paint pen is because I really wanted to make sure that the leaves that were part of the stencil and peekaboo really stood out. And what you could have done, and what I could have done certainly, was to do an offset of my original stencil leaves and then gone in and cut like sort of an offset of that and sliced that in the original design, which would have given me sort of the outline of the image. But this is also another great alternative to kind of getting that outset or offset look without having to cut those super teeny tiny thin pieces on your Cricut. So I'm just going to trace every leaf that I have that was part of the original peekaboo design that we laid down with stencils here with my gold acrylic paint pen. So this took a little bit of time, but the one thing that I love about acrylic paint pens is they dry really quickly, and so I really didn't have to worry about like smudging it all over the place, which was really awesome and really great, and why I gravitate towards using these, because they dry super quick and I can move pretty quick. Because if you're left-handed like me, we tend to like drag our hand through things because most things go, you know, left to right. So being left-handed can sometimes be a little bit challenging in that realm. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sort of tracing all of the leaves here. And then we're going to take the leaves that I cut that were smaller than the original stencil designs of each of those leaf shapes, and we're going to add those kind of around and in between this swirl here, just to continue to add to kind of this really beautiful like swirl pattern of the leaves that we have going on here. So this was a design that was inspired originally by a Pinterest palette, but just kept evolving as I kept going on with the design. So these are cups that I especially love and I hold dear and true to me because it really speaks to what I've talked about in the past, which is trusting the process and just kind of going with where your creative mind is going to take you. So I started with a very simple and basic palette that I found that was so beautiful and so inspiring. I wanted to utilize those colors, and I created something that I didn't even think about. Like, this wasn't what I thought this was going to look like, but I went into this design with just this palette as an inspiration and kind of just let my mind and different ideas kind of just come to fruition as I moved through the steps of this tumbler design process. And so I want to tell you guys, you know, I know a lot of you sometimes struggle with coming up with new and original ideas, and it can be really hard to get in the realm of creating something that's new and unique and maybe doesn't look like somebody else's work. And what I'll tell you is that you just have to be you just kind of have to do things a little willy-nilly, if you will. So just being kind of, you know, kind of free thought and free reign on just what you want to create, and kind of just maybe start with one coat of glitter, maybe a picture that inspires you, and just see where that takes you. You'll be really amazed with how far that will take you by just starting with something so basic and so simple in order to just see where your creative sort of palette and inspiration will take you through the process. So now that I'm finished doing all the outlining for the leaves on this cup, as I mentioned, we're going to go in and we're going to add these smaller cut leaves out of that Cricut textured metallic foil that I love. So I'm just going to add these smaller leaves kind of sort of surrounding the swirl, but also I placed a few kind of in between the gold outlined peekaboo leaves as well, just so that I could make sure to kind of pull it all together. I really wanted the leaves that were outlined with the acrylic paint pen to really stand out, and by adding some of this gold textured foil, those leaves to the center, it kind of just made these kind of stand out and pop a little bit more. So I'm just going to I actually end up adding all of these to the swirl pattern here, just along the outside and kind of on the inside, as I mentioned to some of them. And then that was kind of it. So you guys know the deal here. After I'm done applying the rest of my decals, I am ready for final coats. So I always tell you guys, when it comes to using anything that can be a little troublesome under epoxy, whether it's holographic vinyl, this sort of textured metallic foil vinyl, which can be pretty tough and do a little bit of lifting, if you will, in the epoxying process, or if you're using something like washi tape, I do seal these types of vinyls just so that I don't have any issues in my final coats. Nothing's worse than getting to sort of the end of the tumbler process, you're ready for final coats, and your vinyl gives you a hard time, and you end up having to do like 4 final coats because you have to do so much sanding. as opposed to just your normal 2 final coats on the tumbler here. So I do add a little layer of polyacrylic, the Minwax polyacrylic, to this tumbler, and I make sure to kind of seal those in. You could use a clear gloss spray paint as well, or the CC DIY quick coat as well to apply to your cup if that's something that you are interested in using. But I definitely recommend a sealer just so you don't have any hiccups or issues in your final layers of epoxy. So that is it for today's tutorial. Of course, this cup went on the turner for 2 final coats of epoxy, and let's go ahead and take a look at the final result.